So this is our third video on this syllabus point 1.1.5. In this video, we're going to focus on the minimum monthly balance, daily balance, and borrowing money. This is all going to be in the context of simple interest. So we're sort of finalizing our simple interest calculations. The final video on this syllabus point, the fourth video, will be on compound interest. So basically in this video, we're putting simple interest into a context. So most of you by now should have a bank account. And what you might notice is over time, if you leave a certain amount of money in there, you actually gain some interest. The bank thanks you for having your money with them. Now there's two different types of interest calculations that the banks use. There's the minimum monthly balance and the daily balance. So most banks do the minimum monthly balance. So basically what they say is they take the lowest value of that account in that month and give you the interest based on that. Now, because they're banks, they don't like to lose money, so they regularly round down. So remember, when you're doing calculation involving minimum monthly balance and the daily balance, it's generally rounded down, okay, rounding down. That's so the banks obviously save money. Just make sure you always check the context of the question. However, more often than not, they are rounded down. So let's have a look at this bank account that we've got here. So we've got April and May. So if we were doing the minimum monthly balance for April, we first need to go through April and find out what the minimum value was. So if we look down the balance of April, we can see that the minimum balance was actually the first balance of the $250. So if we were working out the minimum monthly balance for April, we would take the interest, so we're sort of using our simple interest formula. The principal in this case is going to be the minimum value, so that would be the 250. We're going to multiply it by the interest rate, and let's say this interest rate for this particular bank account was 6% per annum. Okay, so we'll multiply it by this interest rate and we'll make it a decimal because we're using it in context, 0.06. And we're now going to multiply it by the percentage, the portion of that of the year. Remember, time is always in years. Now, we need to be quite specific here. Obviously, the 6% is per annum, per the full year. We are just looking at April, and the banks have to be quite accurate with their calculations. So April is actually a smaller month. It only has 30 days. So instead of actually going via months, what they would actually do is make the whole thing into days and how many days are actually included in the month of April. So we know that there is 30 days in the month of April, and we're going to divide that by the whole year's days, which is 365. Remembering that in maths, we generally work in normal years. If a question was really mean, they could throw in the fact that it's a leap year, but it's very, very rare. I don't think I've seen that on an exam question yet. So we've got the minimum monthly balance multiplied by the rate times the proportion of the year that we're actually looking at. So in this case, we're looking at April. So if we do that calculation, you get 1.232 Now they're going to round it down, and this would normally round down anyway if you're talking dollars and cents. So that is going to be your $1.23. So you'd get $1.23 extra interest that month. They never give you much. All right, so let's look at doing the same for May. So if we're looking at the minimum monthly balance for May, we go down the balance down the side and we can see that 600 was the minimum monthly balance. We do the exact same thing again as we did above. So the interest is going to equal the minimum monthly balance, and then we're going to multiply it by the annual interest rate. And then we're looking at the proportion of the year that's actually involved. May has 31 days. So we're going to do 31 over 365. and that gives us 3.0575. Now, in this case, generally we would normally round that up, but we always round it down because of the bank situation. So it's going to be $3.05. So all you need to do, minimum monthly balance isn't too tricky. You just need to know what the minimum is, and you need to know your days of the month. So if you're not sure about that, you either need to learn it, or that's something that could potentially go on your cheat sheet. But hopefully by now you know the days of the months. Balance. They only got $1.23 for the monthly balance of April, because it only takes into consideration the minimum monthly. Now, daily balance is quite similar, but you actually need to break down the entire month into the chunks of how much money is in for how much proportion of the month. So what we're going to do with this one is I'm going to take you through April, and then your question is going to be on May. So what we need to look at is what's happening throughout April and what changes when, how many days is a certain amount in there, etc. So we need to almost put it into blocks. The best way to do this when you're starting is to actually write out the days of April. That will help you make sure you get the right number of days, including days, etc. Okay, so I've just quickly written 30 numbers on the top there. These are going to represent the days of April. So first of all, the first balance was $250. Now we can see that went from the 1st of April all the way to the 6th of April. There was a change on the 7th of April. So that $250 lasted from the 1st to the 6th. Now I can see that that's 6 days. Now you might say that seems really weird that they've done that like that, but it helps you to rewrite all the numbers first so you can make sure what days you include and what you don't. Some students go, well, that's the 1st to the 6th, so that's 5 days, and they forget to include the 1st. So just be really careful with those sort of weird things. That's the tricky part of finance, is what you include and what you don't include, etc. So to do that first calculation, the interest from the 1st to the 6th. Now, sometimes I like to use some subscript. That helps me to make sure I can see what I've done, and also it helps the marker. So you can do the interest, and you might want to write April 1 through to 6, just to tell yourself that's what you're calculating. Now, obviously the balance was $250 for that time. The interest rate, we're going to continue with the same 6% per annum interest rate and cent sign. So we're going to continue with that. We'll multiply that by 0.06. And this time the days that we're going to include, obviously that is 6 days of the entire year. So that's going to be 6 over 365. If we calculate that, again working on the fact that we're rounding down, we get 0.2465, and so that rounding down will take us to 0.24, so 24 cents. So for those 6 days, we got 24 cents. We then do the next section, so we will do the $750. Now that was from the 7th all the way to the 10th, so that's 4 days. So we then do the calculation for those days. So we'll do interest, April 7 to 10 is going to be 750 multiplied by your 0.06 times 4 over 365, because it was 4 days this time, which rounded down gives us the 49 cents. It was 0.493. Next section we will look at the 400 balance. That was from the 11th all the way to the 20th. So it's going to be this whole section here, which is going to be our 10 days. So the interest from April 11 to 20 is going to be the 400 multiplied by the 0.06, and this is 10 days. So it's going to be 10 over 365. That is going to give us the daily balance for that section of 0.65 or 65 cents. Finally, the last balance is going to be the 900, and that is from the 21st all the way to the 30th. It doesn't change. You can see the final balance is the same. So that's interest from April 21st to the 30th is going to equal 900 times your 0.06. And again, that was another 10 days, so it's going to be 10 over 365. That's going to give us an interest rate of 1.47 or $1.47. So we've now worked out all the parts of the different balances throughout April. To work out the total interest for April, we just simply add them together and we get $2.85 interest for April using the daily balance. Now, if we compare that to what we got using the month, with the daily balance, it takes into account all the different changes throughout April. That's why banks generally only do the monthly, because it's better off for them. The daily balance is much better off for you. So now, of course, your challenge will be to do May. So both the monthly and the daily balance is all about you gaining interest on your bank account. Of course, the flip side, the evil side of interest, is the interest you get charged when you borrow things. Now, this is much more common to be a compound interest situation, but there are some rare cases where simple interest would apply. So when you borrow money, obviously you have to repay it, including interest. So there'll be some questions in a context which require you to make sure you've added the interest on and then calculate repayments, etc. So we're going to look at a question like that now. So again, you might want to utilize our PRTI to make sure we're working, you're finding the variables as you read the question. So we're reading through the question, we can see that it's 3 years, the loan is $8,000, 5.4% is our interest, and we're looking at how much needs to be repaid. Now that means we need to find out, well, what was the interest gain? So the principal is the $8,000, the rate is the 5.4, and the time is 3 years. So we start our simple interest formula, which is going to be interest equals the 8,000 multiplied by 0.54, which is the rate as a decimal, times 3, and that's going to give us a interest of 1,296. Now, that's the interest that would be charged, assuming this person's made no repayments over the time or taken out any additional loan. They need to repay the principal and the interest, okay? So the amount owed is going to equal those two added together. So the amount owed is going to be the 8,000 plus the 1,296. So the amount owed is going to be 9,296 after 3 years. Okay, so it's just putting it into a context. And some of them get quite tricky. We're changing loans. We do this much for this time, then we change to this, etc. But it's just using that formula and understanding the context of the question.